ya utu mpa sabe dia esi ejani kasara quality it is swat for na Ningo-Prampram yenim na ba esi ejani quality kasara.
This is so wrong on every score, but no matter how long it takes, we will fight. This is so wrong. You kill a man in his own house. His own house. We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys. In his own house. In his own house. Be careful. You kill a man in his own house. I should what?
So you just saw on your screens some highlights from the incident that happened 5 years ago, January 31, 2019, the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-elections. Before we bring to you the story of some of the victims of this particular violence in that particular area, we did indicate earlier to you that there was a commission of inquiry set up by the president some days after this particular incident, given what we had witnessed in the past. And this commission, made up of 3 with representation from the Office of the Attorney General's office, among others, put out a recommendation, a fact-finding mission indeed. And the report was presented to the presidency days, which was actually months after sitting and then finding some facts into what actually happened over there. There is a government white paper on what exactly happened, but let's run you through quickly on some of the recommendations that happened over there. So after the committee sat, they came out with some number of recommendations. We were looking at 5 different areas. There were some structural, some operational, some were individual liabilities, and some really had to do with compensation to be paid to some victims. So we begin with the structural reforms that is suggested. So they were saying that there should be a review and restructuring of the National Security Ministry. Indeed, this particular point, they were indicating that reporting lines need to be cleared out. They need to clarify as well the roles and responsibilities of especially the National Security Coordinator. There was also the recommendation for the establishment of a standing command and control center, and a clarity, as I mentioned earlier, of role for Minister of State appointed at the presidency to the Ministry of National Security. 2 of these particular pointers were in the government white paper, rejected by the government because they said that really these particular recommendations being put out there by the committee and the commission really is something that is already have been spelled out in the act. So they rejected that particular recommendation. Let's look at the operational recommendations that they made as well. They asked for the development of protocols for assessing intelligence by police and national security establishments, something the government accepted. They also asked for the refrain of using masked and hooded men for civilian policing. What the government said in this white paper was the fact that indeed these persons were not used. And then the commission even adopted the term militia, for which government said that they do not subscribe to the use of the word militia in the report that was put out there by Short and his commission. That's why they asked for rigorous training of officers when it comes to crowd control during elections, among others. There was also the particular call and asked for strict adherence to rules on searches and seizures. This is because, given what we had seen in the video and what happened in 2019 on January 31, there were incidents where the privacy of persons were really violated. So this particular recommendation was to ensure that the privacy of persons was not violated whenever it came to searches and seizures, whenever it related to elections. Among other things, they recommended also the disbandment of the SWAT team of the National Security Council Secretariat and operatives be reassigned, especially a certain colonel that was mentioned over there. They asked for the IGP to reassign this particular person. Also called for support for special operations to be sought from specialized units of the police directly as and when necessary. Intelligence sharing between relevant agencies is something that was highlighted as well by the Short Commission, something which the government indeed accepted on that particular point. Let's move on to other issues when it comes to individual liabilities. Indeed, some persons were afflicted in that particular violence and electoral violence in Ayawaso West Wuogon by-elections. And the ML Commission recommended that there should be some prosecution of Ernest Akomia alias Double for the unauthorized possession of firearms. This particular suggestion and recommendation the government supported in its white paper, as well prosecution for the offense of assault, to wit, the slapping of Sam George by Mohammed Suleimana. This particular recommendation was rejected, however, by the government white paper signed by then Attorney General Gloria Ekufu in 2019. As well, they asked for the immediate removal of DSP Samuel Kojo-Azugu from command responsibility at the Ministry of National Security. These were, among other things, the individual liability recommendations being put out there by the ML Commission. As well, they asked for compensation from some persons. There were two vehicles, one a Kia Picanto and another for which model they couldn't identify at the time, but they were all 17 registered. That is the year 2017 registered vehicles. They asked for these particular items that were destroyed to be indeed left and restored for these persons who may have lost it as well. There was a beauty parlor that seemed to have had some casualties over there by way of the violence over there at Ayawaso West Wuogon. And then the ML Commission did indeed request for this particular owner of the parlor to be restored and compensated for the loss that she suffered. As well, the victims, the persons who have suffered as well some injuries, were asked to be compensated as well by the state. The general recommendations from the ML Commission report really spoke about structural reforms that were indeed needed for the policing when it comes to elections in the country. Among other things, they called for the Ghana Police Service to mount public education on crime scene management. Indeed, there were a lot of interference with what we had seen over there at the crime scene when it happened. But that is just the tidbits we have for you about the ML Commission's report. But my colleague Obed Kengaglo is with one of the victims who suffered violence over there at Ayawaso West Wuogon. He now lives with stroke. Obed, you are Shukura. What can you report?
Right, Emmanuel, just as you mentioned, after the committee was set up
in February 2022, one of the recommendations was for compensations to be paid financially to 6 persons who were critically injured during the reckless gunshots. Now, 5 years on, as to whether or not the compensation have been paid to this victim is a big question to answer. But to find out as to whether or not has been done, I'm currently at the residence of one of the victims who suffered from the gunshots to find out as to whether or not this compensation has been paid to him. So I'm engaging Mohammed Alhassan, who happens to be one of the victims, at his residence at Sukula at the moment. Mohammed, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Before we go to the big question as to whether or not compensation has been paid to you as recommended, tell us, what can you remember during the incident? What really happened?
A very long time. How can I remember? A very long time. Because about 5 years now. But then I was as you say, I'm sick now. I can't remember everything. Maybe what I remember I can tell you.
Yeah, tell us what you can remember.
The only thing I know I'm an NDC member for this also, constituency, I believe, Central. They say that they are doing this, how do you call it, election at Ayawaso. So any member who will to go and help the election can go. Then we went there. As we went, I went there as an observer. We was there, then people, we saw some guys coming with gun. Coming to us, they say, hey, go back. We start moving back. They say that we are holding something with us. Then we say nothing. We hold nothing. Then they say that, okay, they want to search us. Then say, go ahead and search us. They search us. They couldn't find anything. But they still insist that we should leave there. Then we say that we are standing in front of our candidate house. How can we move? That's why they start giving warning shots. After that, then we start running. When we are running, before I realized, I see that I was shot in my hand.
By your hand?
By my hand.
Where exactly?
Here, that's it.
All Now tell us.
It practice then come out. That's what. That's what.
Have you received any compensation?
Nothing, please, nothing. Since the time, nothing. We haven't received even one person from government. No any government member to come to us. Even one person. We haven't received anything, nothing. Since the time.
Right. So, Mohammed, you told me you are sick. What's your condition right now?
Yeah, now because as we went to the hospital before we were shot, the doctor told me that we have to be serious by taking our medication. If you do not take my sickness will tend to stroke. God willing, by 6 months too, it tend to stroke. You see, as I see me now, I'm having stroke. My one side is not working. That's what I'm facing now.
Right. So Emmanuel, that's Mohammed Alhassan narrating to us that he's not received any compensation as it stands 5 years now, and he's currently suffering from stroke, and so is unable to walk. But I'll go back to him, but let me engage his wife as to how they are managing in these times that he's suffering from stroke. Haja, thank you very much. How do you manage?
Paucho, Yamine Shay. Membra nea, no amani, Skakakra, say Uncle Anfo, Mayor for me and South School. Last 2 years, I was about Punipin Uncle University. Scan no into Uncle Ofi. Tea brepa, sometimes dead bed didn't put nada dancing. A draw benum, this year scan no sort of fee. Or to me, Uncle, young to me, Uncle Hospital. Say a course with the best is not dating because you're quite skin no. Ye brepa.
So Emmanuel, that's the wife of Mohammed Alhassan telling us how they are suffering as a result of the unfortunate incident that happened some 5 years ago. Now, Mohammed, what's a case no? Our him Sisia.
Case in say your lawyer answer. Be our lawyer and him. Because last year I said lawyers no so much take almost sure send a bear. Just can I don't kind. I said since the tissue. Can tissue you. I don't know
answer na ebekono. Then I'll say aban eye.
On your number why because you bread pa on composite. You bread pa on composite and then to show you because you on color wife. Then I say hospital, twin hospital. We took 2 months in the twin hospital. I said, I'm going to do twin Kojiadrum. So, and as I say, I'm console, I drew a minimum, almost I'm back view. So, make backwards. I say, continuously, I say, minimum, Namanco. But send a say, I didn't know. And yes, the crown shall not buy a compensation, I say, one compensate here. Then to Ghana for. I then asked an NC compensating and tuition. We show a cracker down here, be out to match your ma. Now, war relief kakra. 2 days later, some come almost had me hospital. Pressure shoot a cry, and years a cry, almost 180. And years a cry. Until we shall not boy. Yeah, brepa, paddy, brepa, serious.
Yeah, that's it. So, Emmanuel, that's Mohammed Alhassan, one of the victims who suffered some gunshots during the Ayawaso West Wuogon reckless violence that happened. He tells us that he has not received any compensation as it stands now and is currently suffering from stroke, unable to walk, move to anywhere, and needs medical attention and wants government to honor its promise of paying compensation to the victims, including himself. Emmanuel.
But thank you so much for bringing us this particular touching story. It's quite a sad incident we'll be watching. But just to refresh you, the white paper put out there by government in 2019, section 6.4, which talks about compensation A, says the government in principle accepts the commission's recommendations in paragraph 9.1 on page 59 of the report on the basis that the injured persons were unfortunately caught up in a legitimate national security operation. However, the Commission failed to provide an assessment of their injury sustained or make recommendations on the quantum of compensation to be paid to the injured persons. So from this particular document, the government is saying they do not know how much to pay, but 5 years is quite enough. Let's speak to the security issues as we head into a crucial post in December 2024. Adib Sani is a security analyst. He joins us now. Adib, many thanks for your time this particular morning. In your opinion, Have we fared well beyond Ayawaso West Wuogon in 2019 when it comes to managing our security matters during the polls?
Well, first of all, categorically state that there's absolutely no way we can fare on if there's no justice. These individuals have been wronged. Their rights have been grossly and dastardly violated, yet nobody has been held to account. There was a commission of inquiry into the incident, only for us to get to know later it was a waste of time and taxpayers' money. Because in the end, there were some recommendations, and the government reacted, so to speak, rubbishing almost everything that was recommended to date. None of the victims has received any compensation, and it begets the question of whether indeed we have learned our lessons and what the implications are in future elections. Lately, I have a lot of people calling me to find out how they can obtain weapons because according to them, they don't trust the state to protect them. They have to protect themselves. And I ask them why. They're like, look, see what happened at the last elections. Many people died. So when you die during an election, so to speak, you die like a fly. Nobody would be held to account. And so they have to protect themselves. I say, no, we have laws, we have processes and procedures we would have to go by, which is quite stringent. But I don't think that is the answer. So we need to learn from our past mistakes and see how we can forge ahead in a positive manner. But surely, most importantly, justice has to, as it were, be served. In recent elections, we've had similar violence. Still, nobody has been held to account. So recently, a friend of mine was, cracking a joke with me. According to him, if you do anything against the law and you want to get away with it, just tell the police it's political in nature. And if you are going to die, make sure you don't die during an election because nobody would be held to account for your death. And I think it is very dangerous for our democracy. And it makes me wonder how the next phase of our democracy would be, especially as we go into this crucial election this year.
We've had the opportunity to visit the polls at the party level, at the national level. We saw what happened in Kumewu. We saw other by-elections as well, where James Jashik Kwesi's constituency, where he won again. We've seen the primaries of both the NDC and the MPP. The Ghana Police Service have been lauded for conducting especially the Alhassan North and Kumewu by-elections successfully. What do you say, based on that particular performance, are security measures in place for election 2024 seems to be grinding slowly to a successful end?
Well, in recent times, I must say, where praise is due, you have to give it. The police has performed wonderfully during the last two by-elections. We know by-elections is always contentious, especially considering the hung nature of our parliament. They've done a lot of work, but if it is replicated in the upcoming election, I think it would help. But the most important thing for us to understand is the fact that the police role in an election is just a percentage. There are many other roles played by different stakeholders, because we have pre-election security on election day and post-election security, okay? And confidence in the process, I think, is the most important factor. When the various political players, the political actors, their followers believe and trust in the process, it is 90% a solution to our democratic, the little democratic challenges we have. But lately, I see rhetoric of the EC chair particularly, and their actions as not helping because it only adds fuel to the existing flame. For example, for her to even come out with the idea of canceling the indelible ink is what is raising a lot of eyebrows. I work very closely with the diplomatic community, and they tell me, what is going on with your EC? Why would you want to cancel a layer of protection, a layer of sanctity, a layer of security to the election? If it is biometric, so what? Biometric is important, but we know it's an IT tool. Okay, it can be manipulated. And the indelible ink, which is very cheap when you consider the budget lines so far as election is concerned. makes me wonder why you want to take it out. As for closing polls at 3 p.m., I see a lot of sense in it because you wouldn't want to do things under the cover of darkness where political actors throw what we call accusations at each other. But you would have to do things in a consensuous manner through the iPad. Speak with the various political actors, get their inputs, and see how you can merge it up so you get to meet each other halfway. But if you take unilateral, obnoxious decisions, it makes the politicians talk. And they go on TV and they go on radio and they say all manner of things which resonates with their followers. And so everybody has a role to play. The media, you also have a very important role to play, I must say.
Adi, before I finally let you go, let me speak to what you mentioned in your earlier submission about people asking for weapons and not trusting state security to protect them. Largely, what leads to this violence and people getting hurt is the use of really these weapons. What measures must be put in place now to ensure that we eradicate the free use of firearms by persons who are not authorized to use them, especially in these crucial elections?
Well, it's an incontrovertible fact that there is a massive proliferation of small arms and lead weapons in Ghana. There are so many weapons in the system. As far back as 2014, when Kofi Annan did their baseline survey, we had over 2 million illegal weapons. So how many years down the line? You can imagine how many more weapons we have in the system. I mean, a lot of it comes from all parts of the subcontinent. And it comes in because of the porous nature of our borders, and it falls into mostly criminal gangs, and some of them find their way to conflict hotspots, and some can also be used for election-related violence. I think one of the most important things we need to do is to capacitate the Small Arms Commission. The unfortunate thing is, even Ghana is one of the earliest countries to sign up to the Arms Trade Treaty. We don't do things very much in line with international best practices. I mean, the Small Arms Commission is supposed to be a regulator and not an advisor. They have a very important mandate too, but without the necessary logistics, the necessary, financial resources, it's very difficult for them to work. And I must say, and like I indicated, where praise is due, Mr. Samuel Yabua, he is the Executive Secretary of the Small Arms Commission. Since he took over, there's been a lot of transformation, I should say. Now we have a gender desk at the Small Arms Commission because guess what? Some of the women hide their weapons for their husbands, okay? And we have them decentralized to various parts of the country, including Hamile, Aflao, Tema, Tamale, Bolga, and the rest. But I think it's still not enough. They have to be given the necessary resources to be able to do their work and do it well. We need intelligence gathering as well. We need the people to be part and parcel of the process because it is their brothers, their sisters who bring the guns home. What is the motivation behind getting them to walk up to the police to say, my brother has brought an AK-47, please do something about it?
Adib, thank you so much for speaking with us. Adib Sani is a security analyst. We've been largely speaking about happenings at Ayawaso West Wuogon. Now, perhaps for his colleagues in the House, when he takes his seat, they see him as a lion on the conqueror because he goes by the name Jata. But Honorable Sam George has not had it well for him since January 31, 2019. GHOne TV's Abdul Hanan Adam caught up with him, and this is what he had to say.
You wake up every year, 31st of January, and for me, it's literally 9 days after my birthday. And it just comes flooding right back again, the images and the pictures. And because of Facebook and social media, you get reminders. The videos pop up again. And you ask yourself, in a split second, I'd have been gone, possibly forgotten. But that was their aim, so that I wouldn't have been around to come and be exposing the rot at GRA, like we did earlier this week, to get rid of us. But notice is hereby served. We're here for the long run. We're not going anywhere. We'll continue to work for God and country and expose the rot in this government.
George also expresses disgust at the fact that 5 years on, some victims have not been compensated.
On the 31st of January 2021, I read a statement on the floor of the House. 31st January 2021. And Parliament demanded the payment of those compensations. Go and check the Hansard. 31st of January 2021. At less than in fact, it was the second week or the first week after this 8th Parliament started sitting. I read a statement. Parliament agreed and called on the Minister for Interior and Minister for National Security to pay those compensations. Nothing has been done. It has not been carried through. So Parliament has had its say. But when you have a despot, when someone is callous and purposely wicked in his heart, he lacks the milk of human compassion. He doesn't care. In fact, for him, the job wasn't completed because the intent was to kill as many Ghanaians as possible. And you saw him do it. 2019 was when this happened in Ayawaso West Wuogon. In 2020, it was a dress rehearsal for 2020. In 2020, 8 Ghanaians were killed. 8 Ghanaians were killed. Look, we have had very contentious elections. In 2008, the elections actually went to a 3rd round, but no Ghanaian has ever been killed in an election. Yes, you have your usual macho men violence here and there, but no Ghanaian has ever been killed. Ayawaso West Wuogon, January 2019, state apparatus attacked and unleashed mayhem on Ghanaian citizens. December 2020, Akufo-Addo, as commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, had his soldiers shoot and kill 8 Ghanaians. Till today, the president has not said a word about the death of 8 Ghanaians that made him president. If the president is not the sole single beneficiary, biggest beneficiary of political violence in our history, but the blood of those 8 biggest beneficiary of political violence in our history, shoot and kill 8 Ghanaians. Till today, the president has not said a word about the death of 8 Ghanaians that made him president. If the president is not the sole single beneficiary, biggest beneficiary of political violence in our history, but the blood of those 8 will continue to cry in his lineage.